Hello. The world's oldest tree is trying to communicate. Just because you can't see them. Wait. Hmm. Just because you can't see them doesn't mean they aren't real. How do you know? Because you can feel them when they're close, I said. The goosebumps on your skin, even though it's not cold. The way the air tastes, and the dry lump in your throat. That's how they let you know they're about to strike. How do you get away? No one ever has. You got about 10 minutes after you notice them, before they force themselves inside you. Then it's all over. Wait, did you feel something? Claire, look at your arms. You've already got the goosebumps. My sister squirmed, thrashing against the seatbelt, which suddenly looked like it was squeezing the breath out of her frail body. Her skin was bone white, although that was hardly surprising since she never went outside. Mark, stop scaring your sister. Mom cracked from the passenger seat. We're almost there, just hold on. Mom, I could feel them. Claire howled. I was doing my best to softly blow air on her from the corner of my mouth without her noticing it was me. Ghosts aren't real, Claire. You're 12 years old. You should know better by now. My dad said without turning. It had been a long drive for all of us, and he was gripping the wheel so tightly it looked like he was ready to swerve off the road and camp in the first ditch we find. See, I told you, Claire. Crossed her arms in an infuriating display of smugness. What? Then how come Dad's mouth didn't move when he said that? Give me a sec, I'm making a video. I'm almost ashamed to admit how much pleasure I got from her double take. Almost then came the rapid aggression burst of tapping on the window. And Claire actually... I'm reading a horror story. I couldn't stop laughing as Dad rolled down the window. Nah. Camping registration. The park ranger asked, face shadowed by his wide-beamed hat. He glanced distractedly into the back seat to catch Claire giggling and smacking me. She wasn't strong enough for it to hurt, and I was laughing too, so I didn't bother defending myself. Mom looked tired but peaceful. Thank God, I thought we'd never get here. Dad handed the man an email printout. Long drive, huh? Where you folks from? The ranger asked. California. I tried to tell them we have our own forest, but Claire was heart set on seeing the great quaking aspen. Welcome to Utah, then. You won't be disappointed. Did you kids know that the Pandora is the oldest and biggest light from on the planet? I did, Claire said. Raised her hand, flaring it around like an eager student. Although each tree is only about 120 years old, they're all connected to the same root network, which has been alive for over 80,000 years, stretching over 105 acres. Just 80,000? The park ranger smirked. I've heard it's more like 1 million. We're not sure exactly, but there's a good chance the Pondo was alive before the first human being walked the earth. Pretty incredible, huh? Yep. I wish I could live that long. Mom and Dad exchanged frantic glances. It's not about how long you live. Mom's voice cracked, and she had to take a long breath before she restarted. It's about what you do with the time that you have. and I, for one, am grateful for every second we got to spend together as a family. Dad squeezed Mom's hand. It must have been hard, too, because the interlocked fingers were trembling. The uncomfortable silence which followed only lasted a moment before the park ranger handed us a pass and waved us on our way. It's no secret that my sister is sick. Mom and Dad don't like to talk about it, so I don't know exactly what it was. She spent a lot of time in the hospital, though, which seems stupid to me because she was always weaker going out than she was going in. I've asked her about it before, but she just shrugged and said they'd figure it out. I don't like the way her face looked when she said that, so I didn't ask again. Seeing her scared, that wasn't any fun. It was almost dark when we got to the campsite. I helped Dad setting up the tent while Mom unpacked the car. Claire just sat on a log and stared at the sunset, which seemed really unfair to me. But it's not like she'd be much help anyway. The light was a weird wired here. Even after the sun went down, it didn't really get dark. The twilight felt like it went on for hours, and the air was so quiet that time must have frozen. I was half hoping Claire would pick up on the wired atmosphere and start believing in my ghost again. But I think she'd forgotten all about them. Maybe she was never even afraid in the first place, only putting on a show for my amusement. "Can you hear them?" she asked, when I went over to call her for dinner. "Who?" "The trees. They've been waiting for me for a long time." I didn't buy it. She was just trying to creep me out as revenge. "What are they saying?" I asked. Claire's pale skin glared in the enduring twilight, almost as white as her eerie smile. "It doesn't speak with words. It's more like feelings, images, ideas." The trembling giant is angry, slow, purposeful, smoldering anger, like a gray shoal carving a hole in a mountain range, and it needs me to set it loose. I wish she wouldn't smile like that. Dinner's ready, come on." I turned back toward the fire in a hurry, not wanting to give her the sensation of me seeing a shredder. Glancing back over my shoulder, I could still see the glare of her little teeth piercing the glittering desk. The next day was miserable and dull. I wanted to go out hiking and explore the forest, but Claire was too tired and Mom insisted we don't leave her behind. The whole point of this trip was to spend time together as a family. She said so we were just going to do activities that we all could enjoy. So we were all surrounded by spectacular nature beauty with adventure and discovery hidden behind every tree. While we sat in the dirt, withering sticks, singing songs, waving baskets, watching the world drip by one exciting second at a time. The baskets are fun. Look how nice your sister is turning out. "Can I make a really big one?" I asked. "Of course. You can make whatever you want." "Okay, I'm going to weave a coffin then. You could just bury me whenever." "Don't even joke about that," my father grunted. "Or better yet, I'll make one for Claire if she's too sick to do anything fun that she might as well." "Mark." "Mom, that time I crossed a line and I knew it. But I didn't care. I was bored out of my mind. I missed my computer and my friends. I hated all this lovey-dovey family time. They always took her side about everything and gave her whatever she asked for. But if I ever wanted something, I was just being selfish. I'm going to be in the woods if anyone needs me, as if... I heard Mom start to chase me for a second, but Dad stopped her to interject. "Stay close, okay? Don't get lost." Getting lost doesn't seem like such a bad option at the moment. White baked giants stretching as far as I could see, with mazes of fallen trees and branches that I could use to build forts. Lush grass and frowns to run through, craggy rocks to climb. Mending steams to jump. I can't believe the rest of them sit 8 hours in the car just so they could keep sitting around here. I marveled at the nature grindy as I walked, mesmerized by the idea of this huge forest was all a single living thing. I decided to dig with a stick to get a look at the connected roots. But the ground was hard and the going was slow. This world have been a lot easier if I had some help. When Claire and I were little, we used to do everything together. She was like my sidekick, always enthusiastic, following me around, leaping to attention whenever I had a mission for her. What was the point of playing games with yourself when no one was there to cheer your victories or mourn your defeats? My frustration at the futility of the dig was quickly mounting, but I used that feeling as fuel to ram the stick down even harder. Out of breath, sweating and aching, I thrust the stick so hard that it snapped in two. I don't know why that made me so angry, but it did. I dropped to my hands and knees and started digging with my fingers, hauling rocks and dirt, clods around me in every direction. My fingers were accumulating cuts and scrapes, and I was about to give up when my hand suddenly broke through a thick clump of roots to reveal a hole in the ground. Dirt and pebbles rained down the hole to despair in the darkness below. It must have been deep, too, because even with my ear to the ground, I couldn't hear anything land. Unwilling to return and admit defeat, I spent the next few hours whittling the hole and trying to find a way to climb down. By around noon, I was so filthy that I was practically indistinguishable from the earth. I chinned through my fingers were openly bleeding in places, and the beating sun frowned down with disdain at my efforts. None of that mattered, though, because I'd opened the hole wide enough to slip into the yearning darkness. I climbed down the network of roots, which were mattered as dazedly as a net. My phone's flashlight flooded the darkness like a needle in an elephant's udder. Underwhelming in the massive space, I suddenly find myself within the hidden cave was convincing plot for the tendencies from the inbuilt trees which joined together here into larger roots, merging in turn to weave great network tap stars which defilled the thin trees above the ground. I continued climbing downward along the wildling roots, tempted to hide down here all day and freak out my family. Below the cave, my route terminated in a small, crucial space. Not much larger than my own body, it felt like being on the inside of an egg, completely encapsulated by the roots, which were mounted so densely now that they formed an impenetrable wall of wood. It was so quiet down here that I could hear my heart throbbing in my ears, my leveled breathing, and a hurricane which fluttered the stillness. Can you hear them? My sister had asked last night, wide-eyed and serious. Up above, under the wide-open sky, with my family eating dinner, that question was child's play. But here in this hidden kingdom under the earth, I placed my hand on a massive column and felt what she was talking about. This could have been growing before humans existed. It could have been touched by forgotten gods or aliens who walked the earth before history began. Or perhaps the earth itself was living through these mighty pillars, lying dormant but for the quiet something anger which slowly burned through the millennium. The root was warm to the touch.